So my name is Liz Eman, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor here in New York, and also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Maryland. I'm an adoption competent therapist for CASE, which is the Center for Adoption Support and Education. We are a nonprofit that provides, nationally, we're the national leader in adoption support and education for foster and adoptive families. We have 7 office locations. We just recently opened our first New York office. So I am one of the proud leaders here in New York to be serving the foster and adoptive community here. I've been working with CASE for almost 4 years.
Excellent. What got you started with this? What brought you and that spark to get you to do something like this?
Yeah, well, so I have a personal connection to adoption in my family. I was lucky enough to reunite with a birth family member, a sibling who had been placed for adoption. And I think that as I was going down my clinical path and I started working at an adoption placement agency years and years ago while getting my master's, I realized I really want to do this work, and there's so much need for education and support.
I started looking over some of the things that you do, and I see that there's certain therapy interventions that you guys use for adolescents and families that come to you. What kind of things, you don't have to tell us all your secrets and stuff, but what kind of things do you find that work with the families that you do see?
Absolutely. Well, we talk a lot about what it means to be an adoption competent therapist. And not only does that involve experience and education and training in working around the needs of foster and adoptive youth and families, but I really like to break it down into a specialty and expertise on 3 topics. So we're really knowledgeable and experienced in working with trauma and how trauma histories impact youth and families. We're really knowledgeable and experts in working in attachment and how attachment impacts permanency and development. And then the third is grief and loss. And so supporting families to address that. And then the intersection of all 3.
Right.
So some of the therapies that are really helpful for that are, I have a certification in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy,
right.
Attachment-based therapies, and including theraplay interventions, anything that supports parents to build their trauma-informed and attachment-based parenting skills.
What kind of things do you see people coming to you the most for? I understand that's a loaded question because it's kind of all around, but we find locally trauma seems to be the biggest issue that most of our families seem to go through. Yes, there's the other 2 that you were mentioning, the 3, but seems to be that trauma seems to be the most thing that people need the help with. Do you find that in your practice that that's true, or?
Yes. So oftentimes when parents come to me, they really want support to help their children through some really challenging behaviors. So that's often where we start. And the work really begins with helping parents understand and decode what those behaviors represent.
It seems a lot of times it's the schools that you have to understand that they don't realize why the kids are having certain behaviors, and someone mentioned like the teachers just beating their heads, like I just don't understand how to get through to them, but they don't understand trauma information and education. What do you feel about, I know that a lot of things are going on the internet and articles about trauma-informed schools. Do you have any opinions about, like, should we inform our schools of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We have strong opinions here at CASE, not only about teachers building their trauma-informed potential and competency, but also their adoption competency. One of the programs that CASE offers is support services, where we go into schools with a curriculum that we created, and we educate teachers and school staff on how to be adoption competent, which includes the trauma piece. So, things that you might not even have your eye out for, but that impact adoptees in schools, such as being in health class and learning about, prenatal development, or having to create a family tree.
Yes.
You know,
I find that that's a lot, that when kids get to like that second and third grade where they have to do the family tree, sometimes it becomes very complex for them. For some definitely.
Yeah, or being in biology and studying genetics as a topic. Many topics that can just stir things up for kids, and it can be extremely helpful if there are supportive, knowledgeable staff to help students put words to what they're going through.
Absolutely. What is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy? And just a little snippet, because I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. So TFCBT is a evidence-based model that supports youth and their parents. It's family-based to process and work through and alleviate the symptoms of trauma related to one or more traumatic event or circumstance.
What kind of things would you do with a family? For example, this is kind of interesting to me, so that's why I'm kind of asking you this question. What kind of things would you, is it more talking type therapy? Is it a play type therapy? Or is it all the above type therapy? It's just to get to the families, correct?
In TFCBT in particular, it's a really specific model.
Okay.
It usually spans 12 sessions, and because it is so evidence-based, it really is pretty directive and pretty structured.
Okay.
And it is one of the things that I do, but not the only approach that I use when working with children with a trauma history. In TFCBT specifically, it's really about educating parents and children about trauma and how it impacts them, building their ability to calm and regulate around the physical symptoms of trauma, and then building their capacity to narrate and express what they've been through, and share that with their parents, and expose themselves to that stressful experience in a way that can alleviate the symptoms.
Right. Where are the offices? Is it upstate New York, or where are you guys located? And how would people, because I can always put a link up, and how would people find your?
Yeah, wonderful. So our main office is located in the state of Maryland, but here in New York, we have an office in the Capital Region, specifically in Albany. But we also provide telehealth, which is secure video counseling throughout the state of New York for adolescents and adults.
That's awesome. I like that. That's great information. Well, what kind of things are you going to be talking about in the workshop that you're doing at the conference this year?
Yeah, I'm really happy. This will be my first time attending the conference, and I'm excited to present on the topic of honoring connections for foster youth and adopted youth. Whether youth were adopted at birth or adopted as older children, I like to use the metaphor of how to help them tell their story and create a narrative. And I'm specifically focusing on who the characters are in their narrative. Whether they are past characters, for example, for foster youth who have different important people in their life, whether it was foster parents or social workers or birth family members, or whether it was a youth adopted at birth who may not be in an open adoption and may not know birth family or have contact with them. The workshop really covers how to honor those connections and the psychological presence of those birth family members or other characters in a young person's life, and then also how to create the potential or sustain meaningful relationships whenever possible for youth, and how that benefits children.
Do you have, I love asking the question to therapists and counselors, and what kind of books? I always love asking what kind of book recommendations. Now, it's not for everybody, but I always like to see where you guys come from. Did you read The Connected Child? Do you find that some great recommendations for families to get started? Do you happen to have any books that you like in particular?
Yeah, the two I've been recommending a lot recently. One that's not brand new, but The Whole Brain Child, about how to integrate the left and the right sides of the brain, right? How to help children regulate, essentially. And we really use that book in tune with attachment-based parenting, and how to help parents understand their role as co-regulators for children. And the other book that I really have been recommending lately is The Self-Driven Child by Stixford. And that's a lot about helping parents support their kids to develop intrinsic motivation.
Okay. Yeah, I spoke to someone yesterday, and just something as simple as I learned over the years that it was a simple thing that I used on my child with bilateral integration. Even something just to get the two brains talking with just movement actually helped him learn how to regulate himself in just a simple way. And I never even, I was actually looking at a YouTube video from Australia, where they said in schools that they use bilateral to wake up their brains before school starts. So I find just some simple things, I'll call it simple, but sometimes just simple things of just getting the movement and your brain working together helps them learn how to regulate a little bit as well. Each person's different, I get it, but that was something I thought was very interesting a couple of years ago that I learned.
Yeah. So. Another method that I use to help children work through the experiences of trauma is sand tray therapy, and it also addresses the whole brain integration because it uses sensory modalities and creative expression, and it doesn't rely as heavily on verbal expression.
Any last minute things that you'd like to add to anything before I end the interview?
Just that Case is really excited to have a presence here in New York and bring these support services to families. In addition to the clinical work we do with families, we do professional trainings and workshops for the adoption community. So whether it's parents or professionals, Case's website is a rich resource for both parents and professionals. We do monthly webinars, which are often free for the first 400 registrants, but they're on a variety of topics that may interest foster and adoptive parents and professionals.
Oh my gosh. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and have a great time at the conference.
Thank you so much.